The famous actor and martial artist Bruce Lee died in Hong Kong during the filming of the movie Game of Death. The official reason is brain swelling. Why this happened is still unclear for sure. The unclear details of the case over the years have created an atmosphere of secrecy and conspiracy around his death. What is known basically is that Bruce Lee died at the home of Hong Kong actress Betty Ting, who was his mistress. The actor dozed off and did not wake up. More than 45 years have passed, but doctors, journalists, and fans are still arguing about the reasons and putting forward new versions. What really happened on that fateful day? Was the legendary actor involved in the showdown of criminal gangs? And could his death be an accident? Biographer Express is with you, and today we will analyze the mysterious death of Bruce Lee. Bruce has spent his whole life striving to be head and shoulders above his rivals. In his last year, the actor found himself at a crossroads. Despite the fact that he was quite successful and was on his way to world fame, he wanted to be known for who he really was. His 1972 film The Way of the Dragon gained popularity thanks to Bruce's fight with Chuck Norris and broke box office records. In addition, it was the first Hong Kong film shot in the West. Nevertheless, Bruce was still struggling to leave an indelible mark on the West and establish his identity as a martial artist genius, actor, and entertainer. Several reports, including a Newsweek one, said Bruce Lee became ill about 2 months before his death. He suffered from headaches and seizures and was even taken to the hospital after he lost consciousness. Bruce was diagnosed with cerebral edema, and he laid unconscious for a whole day. After that, the actor flew to the UCSF Medical Center for examination. In Matthew Polly's book, Bruce Lee, A Life, it was later revealed that doctors concluded that Bruce had suffered a severe seizure, the cause of which could be stress. However, they were not sure and discharged the actor from the hospital when he got better. "That's not how Bruce Lee is going to die," he joked at the time. After being discharged, Lee returned to his daily workouts and a strict diet including vegetables, rice, fish, and milk. It was amazing how quickly he recovered from such a serious illness. His swelling disappeared, and outwardly, Bruce looked healthy, and no one expected that something unusual would happen. He even went to Hong Kong for a long visit. It turned out to be his last excursion to his homeland before his death. On July 20th, 1973, Bruce Lee was set for a productive day, mostly related to work on his upcoming film, Game of Death. Bruce had a lot of creative ideas, and he was eager to bring them to life. On that incredibly hot day, Bruce went to the Golden Harvest studio and talked with actor George Lazenby and film producer Andre Morgan to brainstorm for the Game of Death. After this meeting, he crossed paths with Raymond Chow, who was another producer of this project, and told him that he wanted Lazenby to take part in the film. Bruce and Andre were supposed to invite George to lunch, but the actor had other plans, and he canceled everything. Then, Bruce decided to stop by Betty Ting Pai's apartment under the pretext of lunch. The studio driver took Lazenby back to the hotel. Bruce, in turn, promised to return to the studio in the afternoon to decide how much money they were going to offer Lazenby. Bruce jumped into his Mercedes and drove away. He arrived at Betty Ting Pai's apartment at 67 Beacon Hill Road around 1 o'clock in the afternoon. "I was his girlfriend," Betty commented later. There was a bit of sex and a bit of hashish in their relationship, but no alcohol or harder drugs. Mostly that day, Bruce was passionate about meeting George Lazenby and what it meant for his film. Also at lunch, he offered Betty the role of the main character's love interest, but the woman claimed that she resisted this idea because she was uncomfortable playing his girlfriend on the screen, being his mistress in real life. At the same time, it should be mentioned that Bruce had a wife, Linda, who was at home that day. After lunch, the company got together again, this time at Betty's house. Previously, Lee asked Chow to come and persuade Betty to participate in the filming. During the rehearsal, Bruce started complaining about feeling unwell. Bruce wasn't feeling well. I wasn't feeling very well either. I think we had some water, and then he was acting, Chow told later. With bubbling enthusiasm, Bruce jumped up and performed scene after scene. He was always very active, Raymond says. In telling the story, he acted out the whole thing, so that probably made him a little tired and thirsty. After a few sips, he seemed to be a little dizzy. Right after that, Bruce complained of a headache. The time was approaching 7:30 p.m. They were supposed to pick up Lazenby for dinner. Betty had already changed her clothes and was ready to go, but the pain in Bruce's head intensified. When he said he wanted to rest, Raymond Chow awkwardly jumped up and tried to leave. Raymond thought it was an excuse, Betty recalled with a smile. She gave Bruce one of her Equalgesic pills, a common prescription painkiller. Subsequently, the woman claimed that this was not the first time Bruce had taken them before. Raymond suggested that Bruce leave first and they could have come later, but Bruce went into Betty's bedroom, undressed, and lay down on her mattress lying on the floor. Betty closed the bedroom door and sat down to watch TV in the living room. Raymond left around 7:45 p.m. to pick Lazenby up from the Hyatt Hotel and take him to the Japanese restaurant at the Miramar Hotel. After 30 minutes of waiting at the bar with Lazenby, Chow called Betty's apartment. She told him that Bruce was asleep, so Raymond and George were having dinner without them. When Raymond finished dinner with Lazenby at 21:30, he called Betty again. She said Bruce was still asleep, but she would try to wake him up. Afraid to disturb him, the woman slowly opened the door, crept into the bedroom, knelt down next to him, and whispered his name. He didn't move. Then she pushed him to the shoulder and repeated his name louder, hoping he just couldn't hear. Panic increased. She started shaking him, constantly saying his name. After a couple of futile attempts to wake up her lover, Betty hysterically called Raymond at the restaurant. He told her to calm down and that he was on his way. Raymond immediately remembered on May 10th when Bruce almost died of cerebral edema. He called Dr. Langford, the doctor who saved Bruce's life at the time, but his phone was busy. Raymond raced across town to Betty's apartment. We recall that the events took place even before the advent of mobile phones, so on the way, Raymond repeatedly jumped out of the car to use a payphone and dial Langford's number, whose line remained busy. He later found out that Langford's daughter was on the phone with her boyfriend. There are strange coincidences, aren't they? When Chow arrived at the apartment, he found Bruce undressed, lying flat on the mattress, and next to him, Betty, in a state of shock, who continued to shout his name. At that moment, Raymond realized that he had arrived too late. As he stood and looked at Bruce's lifeless body and Betty's sobbing, Raymond must have realized the enormous danger of the situation because the most famous man in Hong Kong was dead in his mistress's bed, and the two of them were the only witnesses. The scandal would have engulfed them, and the press would have brought charges, and this could have ended their careers, perhaps even put them in legal jeopardy. If Raymond's original imperative was to save Bruce's life, now his main goal was clear. Bruce Lee had to die somewhere else besides his mistress's apartment. Utter chaos followed. Raymond dressed up the actor and ordered Betty to call a doctor, but upon arrival, the doctor could not resuscitate him. Then Raymond called an ambulance and said that the man had fainted and needed help, and then recalled Bruce's wife pointing out that Bruce had something like what happened last time and was being taken to the hospital by ambulance. Upon arrival at the intensive care unit, the doctors were powerless, because it is pointless to resuscitate a person who has been dead for almost 40 minutes. Lee was pronounced dead. Bruce's wife demanded an autopsy to find out the cause of death, but an hour later the whole press was buzzing with the news that the world-famous actor had died at the age of 32 for an unknown reason. You may think that the question of the actor's death was closed, but you are mistaken. Raymond Chow said in a 2005 interview that Bruce Lee died from an allergic reaction to the main active ingredient of the painkiller. Pathologists did not perform an autopsy of the body with all the necessary tests, and why is unknown. But they found traces of the drug Equagic in the body and swelling of the brain with an increase of 13%. Therefore, the official version has pointed out that the cause of death was the drug, or rather, the individual intolerance of the compounds that make up it, which caused the swelling. Despite the prevalence of the theory, there are a number of gaps in it. So, according to his mistress, the actor took the drug not for the first time. The autopsy did not find typical symptoms of a salicylate poisoning, and the symptoms of brain edema appeared even before he took the painkiller. In 1975, Chuck Norris said that Bruce had been taking medication since 1968 to alleviate back problems caused by an intervertebral disc injury. According to the actor, it was the combination of painkillers that caused the tragedy. By the way, Chow was one of the catalysts of the wave of rumors around the death. He was afraid of a scandal because of Bruce Lee and Betty Ting's relationship, so he told the Hong Kong press that Lee died at home with his wife. But the truth about the place of death quickly came out, and this led people to believe that something was being hidden from them in this story. That's how theories about a conspiracy against a world-class star began to appear. But if it wasn't the medication, then what could have caused death? One of the assumptions is that it's all the fault of the hot weather. The version about heat stroke was made up by author Matthew Polly, who wrote a book about Bruce in 2018. Theoretically, brain edema is one of the possible consequences of heat stroke. Polly explained that he had consulted with experts. In the 70s, no one considered the version about heat stroke because the phenomenon was poorly studied at that time. Polly claimed that it was the hottest day in Hong Kong at the time of Bruce Lee's death. It was also rumored that 6 months before his death, Lee removed sweat glands from his armpits to look better in the shot. Because of this, the body began to cool down worse and the body overheated. But at the autopsy, no signs of multiple organ dysfunction were found that would indicate such an option. And according to some experts, the removal of sweat glands is not enough to disrupt thermoregulation of this scale. Sweat is produced on most of the surface of the skin, and according to the data, that ill-fated day was no hotter than an average summer day in Hong Kong. The temperature range varied from 82 to 89 degrees Fahrenheit. Hash, to which the actor was addicted, was also blamed. It was banned in Hong Kong, but one day Lee read in Playboy magazine about the effects of cannabis and decided to try it. Thus, he relaxed after exhausting filming. Hashish was indeed found in the stomach during the autopsy, but the dose and method of administration could hardly lead to rapid death. There are also more eccentric versions, but before announcing them, we suggest you subscribe to our channel so as not to miss new videos about the difficult fates of your favorite celebrities. Click on the subscribe button and the bell, and we continue. Rumor has it that Bruce Lee used money from one of the criminal gangs to finance the filming. At some point, he refused to pay the interest. 2 weeks before death, Lee threatened Lo Wei, who was reported to have mobster connections, and then the group ordered his murder out of revenge. Is it logical? It is quite possible, but upon examination, no injuries were found, as well as symptoms of poisoning. Not only bandits could be the cause of the artist's death. Some witnesses claimed that during the filming, a man from the extras offered to help perform the trick, and during the rehearsal, hit Bruce on the head, and then he disappeared. It was the monks' revenge for revealing the secrets of Kung Fu. They sent a master who dealt Bruce Lee a delayed death blow. The legend sounds exactly like this because the blow of delayed death is applied to a certain pain point at a certain time. According to old sources, this can cause a person to have cancer, a tumor, or a malfunction of the heart. According to rumors, a few weeks before his death, Lee had a fight with an unknown old man and did not pay attention to his pokes. There are other explanations. Poisoning by competing companies, drugs, exorbitant training, murder in self-defense, even the curse of the house in which Lee lived because his son also died on the set 20 years later. Which of the above theories seems most likely to you? Share it with us in the comments. We will be happy to discuss with you a riddle 50 years long. The actor's life was cut short, but let's not forget that the Game of Death still came out on the screens, although it mutated quite a lot. The script was significantly rewritten, and the editors took close-ups of Bruce Lee with a length of 1 or 2 seconds from his previous films for cutaways. This is noticeable by the difference in the quality of the film. It is also worth noting that the directors used extreme measures, so many fans noticed Bruce's cardboard face in one of the scenes of the Game of Death.
Just waiting for you to call. Patience. That's not one of our virtues.
The news of Bruce Lee's death was initially perceived as a PR campaign because everyone knew that in the Game of Death, his hero was dying. Robert Klaus, who took over the implementation and script of the film after Lee's death, used this and inserted footage from a real funeral into the film. And after the release of the film, rumors about the Chinese mafia, which took revenge for the money for the shooting, began to appear. The film was re-edited so much, reassembled from the smallest details, and disassembled into parts that it had several different versions which differed not only in sound effects but even in plot moves. The versions differed not only from countries but even had different dialects within the same country. So the Chinese rental received a separate version of the film for Cantonese and Mandarin dialects. As you understand, there is still no reliable information regarding the real cause of the actor's death. However, more recently, the internet has filled with headlines that doctors have revealed the cause of Bruce's death after 50 years. It sounds incredibly strange and, at first glance, funny, but who knows? Modern doctors claimed that Bruce died to an overabundance of water in the body. In 2022, a study was published in the Clinical Kidney Journal. There, on the basis of open sources, a group of specialists conducted a kind of investigation into the cause of Bruce's death. So, in their opinion, the overabundance of water was due to the dysfunction of the kidneys of the artist and the passion for a special diet with a huge amount of fluid. According to some reports, Lee drank about 7 to 8 liters of water a day. And the use of marijuana, diuretics, steroids, and other prescription drugs that affect the functioning of the kidneys as well as organ injuries could lead to hyponatremia, an abnormally low concentration of sodium in the blood. As a result, the kidneys stopped coping with the excretion of fluid from the body. This caused the swelling of the brain. Eyewitness accounts indirectly confirm this story. His wife Linda said that before his death, Bruce had a liquid diet of carrots and apple juice, and Matthew Polly, as we said earlier, referred to the actor's repeated use of water on the evening of his death. We hypothesized that Bruce Lee died from a specific form of kidney dysfunction, the inability to excrete enough water to maintain water homeostasis. This may lead to hypernatremia, cerebral edema, and death within hours if excess water intake is not matched by water excretion in urine, which is in line with the timeline of Lee's demise. Experts emphasized. The death of the great actor has always been honored. He has always been on the radar, and his career and personality are still being talked about. In 2012, the documentary I Am Bruce Lee was released on the big screens, which included cuttings from interviews with Bruce himself, his rare photographs, as well as memories of his relatives and colleagues. In the actor's homeland, in Hong Kong, a monument was erected to mark his 65th birthday. A day before its opening, a similar monument appeared in the Zrinjavac City Park in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Los Angeles also honored the actor by erecting an almost 6-foot monument to him in Chinatown. Also, a 65-foot statue of Bruce was erected in the Chinese city of Shunde, the town where the ancestors of the martial art master's parents came from. The monument is located on the territory of Bruce Lee Paradise Park. Unfortunately, Bruce Lee is not the only actor whose death literally baffles everyone who tries to figure it out. So, around the death of Marilyn Monroe, there is still a lot of controversy and speculation. Many fans do not believe that a famous actress could commit suicide. But is there any basis for such a theory? And what signs indicate that everything in the Monroe case is much more complicated than it seems at first glance? Click on the video that appears on your screen and find out the secret of the famous blonde's death. But before that, don't forget to like our video. Biographer Express was with you. See you soon.